Now, the basic premise of what this course is about is applying the concept of lower and upper neighbors to a destination tone or a target note. Now, we've discussed that the target note is going to be a root, a third, or a fifth of a C chord because we're going to be in the key of C. And you've got 4 different jam tracks over which we're going to play some of these little ideas. Right now, we're going to apply a low-high principle, and that's specifically what happened when we had our Jailhouse Rock, Zorba the Greek move. We were going from the lower chord to the higher chord. The higher chord was the destination, the higher chord being the C chord. I know I may sound really elementary here, but I want to make sure you don't lose the concept here. It's really quite simple. What I want you to look at is example 2 in your tablature, and also in chart 1, we have some color-coded melodic patterns. In chart 1, you have 3 columns, and the first column, the very first example up there, is 7 to 1, flat 3 to 3, flat 5 to 5. If you compare that to diagram 1, and you play example 2, that's specifically what you're going to be playing. You'll be going from 7 to 1. I'm just playing example 2 right now. Then you're going to go from flat 3 to 3, flat 5 to 5, and then it's going to start over again an octave higher. Okay, you might say, well, okay, whoop-de-doo. What's so cool about that? Well, let's take a jam track here. Now, I'm just playing the pattern. You can hear what it sounds like, a little bebop. So if I go like... You hear how I sprinkled it in there. Let's play it over a different kind of track. Right away, you're probably saying, wait a minute, it doesn't sound like rock, it doesn't sound like blues, it sort of sounds different. And indeed it does. This course is designed for the kind of people who want to branch out into non-blues-based stuff, into the jazz realm. But this can also be sprinkled in your blues playing and everything else. But if you just play these patterns, I want to forewarn you, if you just play these patterns, you're going to say, wait a minute, they sound a little contrived, they sound like exercises. You must take everything you learn out of this and juggle it into your regular playing, and you'll hear how you'll start sprinkling in some chromatics. And what chromatics would those be? Well, you've just learned in this particular lesson that if you go from low to high, 7 to 1, that's not chromatic, is it? It's chromatic in the sense that it's a half step, but it's not non-diatonic because the 7 is in the scale, in a C scale, right? All the numbers are going to be in a scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But when you go flat 3 to 3, well, that's a blues movement. Right? You might say, well, I already know that lick. But you're going to see it a different way, and it's going to provide a foundation upon which we'll build a lot of cool lines. The flat 5 to the 5, you might say, well, I already know that from go. I've played blues licks and done that for years, flat 5 to 5. But you probably haven't seen it laid out this way. Right? You want to make sure you see it, and then don't forget that when you play those partials, you're playing low to high. You're targeting the chord tones. Now, let me close this lesson by saying it's important for you to practice all your different options as a guitarist. And here's what I mean. Technically, you could pick both notes, you could hammer on, you could legato slide, or you could bend. If you're doing a cool country thing, it might be really cool to start putting on... Now, the problem is if you start doing double stop bends, the strings don't bend in equal intervals, so you have to play around with that. But remember that conceptually, you're thinking of... I'm going to keep playing that. You might say, what's up with that? You're thinking of this sound that comes from Zorba the Greek, comes from Jailhouse Rock, of approaching your chord tone from a half step below. So this lesson was low to high. And when you look on chart number 1, you have 3 of those patterns. They are 7 to 1, flat 3 to 3, flat 5 to 5. Notice how I've color-coded your chord tones, both in your diagrams and in your charts. The red numbers are your chord tones. Those are your destinations. Get these under your fingers, in your brain, and in your ears.